All right, welcome. Today we are getting you ready for war. We're going to dive deep into the rules of Regicide Crown Duels. Now, this is a game where you're not just playing some cards. No, you are fighting for the right to rule an entire kingdom. So let's get you ready for your first battle. Yeah, the game itself really sets the stage perfectly, doesn't it? This isn't some friendly disagreement. We're talking all-out war. Every single card you play is a command, and every round is a brand new battle. The stakes, they honestly couldn't be any higher. So to make sure that you're the one left standing, we're going to march through 4 key areas. We'll start by setting up your kingdom, then we'll break down the 5 phases of every single battle, master the art of war, and finally, we'll learn how you can claim that throne for yourself.
Okay, first things first. Before you can conquer, you've got to muster your forces and establish your own domain. Let's get your kingdom set up and ready for the epic fight that's coming. So this is your battlefield. Everything that happens in the game is going to happen in these 4 zones. You've got your attack zone for going on offense, the defense zone for protecting yourself, the spell zone for some awesome game-changing magic, and the corruption zone. That's where you can stash cards for later, but you got to be careful with that one, as we'll find out. And you know what? Getting your forces ready is super fast. First, each of you picks a suit. That's your kingdom. Then grab your royalty, your king, queen, and jack, and stack them up. They're your health points, with the jack starting on top. A jester gets tossed out to cause a little mischief. You shuffle the rest of the cards and draw 3. Boom! Just like that, you're ready to fight. Okay, now this is a really cool part of the game, how your royals work. See, they're not just your health points. They also tell you how many cards you can hold. You start as the jack with 3 vitality, or HP. Once the jack's defeated, you flip him over and become the queen with 4 vitality, and finally the king with 5. So the more damage you take, the more powerful you actually become, because more vitality means more cards and more options. It's a great comeback mechanic.
You know, every great commander understands the rhythm of battle. And in Crown Duels, every single round follows a very strict 5-phase structure. Once you get this down, you understand the flow of the entire game.
And here they are. It's always plot, reveal, fight, cast spells, and clean up. Just think of it like this. You plan your move, you execute it, and then you recover. We'll walk through the first 2 right now, and then do a real deep dive on the others. So, the plot phase. This is where all the scheming and the mind games begin. You look at your hand, you decide your whole strategy for the round, and you place cards face down into your different zones. Are you going to go for an all-out attack, a super strong defense, or maybe set up some kind of powerful spell? Your opponent has no idea what you're up to until it's way too late. And then comes the reveal. Both players flip their cards at the same time. This is that aha moment where you finally see what your opponent was planning. And there's a really important rule here. If the diamond card you played in your attack zone has a higher number than their diamond, their card gets discarded before the fight even starts. It's a fantastic way to just neutralize a threat right off the bat. Okay, with our plans out in the open, we are heading into the most critical parts of the round. Phase 3, the fight, and Phase 4, casting spells. This right here is where battles are won and lost. So we're dedicating this whole section, the art of war, to mastering exactly how that combat works. Look, it all boils down to 2 key numbers, strength and block. Your attack zone is what builds up your strength, and your defense zone builds up your block. Your goal? It's pretty simple. Get your strength higher than their block. So how do you figure out your strength? It's actually pretty easy. You start with the value of your highest diamond card in your attack zone. That's your base. Then you get an ignite bonus of +1 for every other diamond you have there. And finally, there's this really clever watch bonus. If you and your opponent both played a spade of the same number in your attack zones, you get an extra +2 strength. A nice little reward for your foresight. And calculating your block is just as tactical. Your base block is your highest club. You get an armor bonus of +1 for any other clubs you played. Then a ward bonus adds the entire value of your highest heart card. And guess what? That watch bonus is back. If you both played a matching spade in your defense zones, you get a solid +2 to your block. So, at the end of the day, after all that math is done, it's this simple. If your final strength is higher than their final block, you score a hit. That's it. You've broken through. But wait, a successful hit gets you more than just damage, and this is where the tactics get really deep. If you have a diamond in your attack zone when you hit, you get the cleave bonus, which deals an extra point of damage. And if you have a club in your defense zone, the exploit bonus lets you draw a card. I mean, hitting your opponent and getting more cards in your hand? Now that's a winning combo.
All right, now for phase 4, which is my absolute favorite part, spells. These are incredibly powerful effects from the cards in your spell zone. They happen during the fight phase, right after all the strength is calculated, and they can completely flip the script. This is where a battle you were about to lose can suddenly become a stunning victory. I mean, just look at these examples. With a heart spell, Siphon lets you turn your entire block value into strength for the round. Can you imagine building up this huge wall of defense and then, surprise, turning it all into a massive attack? Or what about the diamond spell, Shatter? It just straight up destroys your opponent's cards. Spells are your ace in the hole, for sure. Okay, we've weathered the storm of battle. Now it's time for the final push. In this last section, we're going to cover a critical rule you absolutely need to avoid, see how each round wraps up with Phase 5, and finally, learn how to claim that throne.
First, let's talk about a super important mechanic called corruption. Remember how your royal's vitality determines your hand size? Well, if, after you've placed your cards during the plot phase, you're still holding more cards than your vitality allows, you become corrupt. Think of it as a penalty for being too greedy.
And trust me, the penalty is harsh. You immediately have to discard 2 cards from your hand. And, what's even worse, you're locked out of using your corruption zone, which is where you stash powerful cards for later rounds. So managing your hand size to avoid corruption is a huge part of the strategy. And that brings us to the very last phase of a round, cleanup. This is basically just resetting the board. You discard your used attack and defense cards. If a royal was defeated, you flip it over and bring out the next one, going from jack to queen or queen to king. And remember, that means you actually get stronger. Finally, you both draw back up to your current royal's vitality, and you're ready for the next round. And that's the ultimate goal. That's the whole point. The game ends the second one player's king is defeated. You have to fight your way through their jack and their queen to finally take down the king and claim that kingdom as your own. So, there you have it. The strategies, the phases, the path to victory. You've got all the knowledge you need to lead your kingdom into battle. The only question left is, when you finally sit on that throne, how are you gonna rule?